You're listening to Trump is rushing to build his ballroom. A review process could take years. A news story written by Jonathan Edwards and read by an AI-generated voice. President Donald Trump is rushing to break ground next month on a giant White House ballroom, but has not yet submitted the project for a review that experts said is required by law and often takes years to complete. A security fence and a tennis pavilion, neither of which involved the White House itself, each took at least 2 years to move through the National Capital Planning Commission, which vets construction of and renovation to the region's federal buildings. The Trump administration plans to start work next month on a $200 million, 90,000 square foot structure that would nearly double the footprint of the main building and its east and west wings. Records show the project has yet to be reviewed by the commission. 3 former Planning Commission members told The Washington Post that a review of any exterior construction project at the White House is required by federal law. If we had jurisdictional review over a fence, we would logically have jurisdiction over an entire wing being added to the White House, said L. Preston Bryant, Jr., who chaired the commission for nearly a decade before stepping down in 2019. At first, Trump administration officials said a 1964 executive order allows the president to bypass the commission. But after a Post reporter pointed out the legal requirement, officials said the commission will be a part of that process at the appropriate time. Since taking office in January, Trump has overseen myriad interior design retouches, vowed to replace a terribly remodeled bathroom in the Lincoln bedroom, and paved over the Rose Garden lawn. He also installed twin 88-foot flagpoles on the north and south White House lawns and paved over the Rose Garden lawn, projects that Bryant said probably should have gone through the commission. But the ballroom project is far bigger and clearly dear to Trump's heart, rectifying a problem that has irked him for at least 15 years: a lack of entertaining capacity. Currently, for events with more than 250 guests, workers must erect what Trump has called an old broken canvas tent. Trump's passion for the plan was on display last week as he walked the White House roofline with an architect, reveling in his latest and most ambitious effort to leave his mark on the iconic building. When reporters shouted questions, Trump coyly replied that he was taking a little walk and trying to find more ways to spend my money for the country. "Anything I do is financed by me," he said, a reference to his promise to help pay for the $200 million project, which he has said will be privately funded. Trump has promised to release a list of donors, though no private donations have yet been locked in, a senior White House official said Thursday. The National Capital Planning Commission has one public meeting scheduled on September 4th, before Trump plans to begin work on the ballroom. No agenda has been posted. The 12-member body, composed of presidential and mayoral appointees, cabinet secretaries, and local officials, is likely to present a friendly audience. One member, D.C. Mayor Muriel E. Bowser, declined to comment on the commission's involvement in the project. Others did not respond to requests for comment. Planning Commission spokesman Stephen Staudigl said Friday that the agency looks forward to reviewing the submission when it comes before the commission. Meanwhile, the pace and impact of the project has elicited concern from some historians, architects, and former commission members who say the public should have a voice in the process. On Tuesday, the American Institute of Architects, citing the organization's role as perpetual guardian of the White House's architectural integrity, urged officials to take the project through a more rigorous review process. Doing so would ensure the project meshes with the White House's neoclassical design and historic sightliness, and draws the most qualified architect and design team, Association President Evelyn Lee and Interim CEO Stephen Ayers said in an open letter. It also would establish trust with the public by allowing people to meaningfully participate, the letter said. Changes to a national treasure and an enduring symbol of our democracy should reflect the importance, scale, and symbolism of the White House itself, they wrote. So too must the process rise to the significance of the building and the extent of the proposed alterations. Trump, a lifelong developer who prides himself on his eye for detail, has embraced his role as tastemaker-in-chief, publicly polling cabinet members about gilding the cabinet room's ceiling molding, gushing over the perfect marble in a Qatari palace, and ordering top officials to submit recommendations for promoting beautiful federal civic architecture. Presidents do have a meaningful say over design elements inside the White House, according to the terms of the 1964 executive order, which was referenced by multiple federal spokespeople in response to questions about the ballroom. The order creates a preservation committee, which reports to the president and charges its members with preserving the museum character of certain parts of the White House's interior. It also establishes the position of White House curator to care for and preserve the historic and artistic contents of the building, specifically mentioning furniture, fixtures, and decorations. The order does not, however, mention new construction. The White House Preservation Committee is separate from the National Capital Planning Commission, which Congress established in 1924 as the central planning agency for the region's federal buildings. By law, the commission reviews all improvement projects on local military bases, courthouses, and government agency headquarters. Staff members typically handle smaller ones like sidewalk expansions, while the full commission reviews larger ones such as a new wing at the Pentagon. Large projects undergo a rigorous four-step review, Bryant said, ending with a presentation at a public commission meeting. At each stage, commission staff and commissioners give feedback on details ranging from aesthetics to environmental impacts. The 500-foot perimeter fence surrounding the White House involved 5 public meetings over nearly 2 years, as the commission took pains to ensure the fence comported with federal environmental laws and the historic and symbolic importance of the White House and the surrounding grounds. 4 years elapsed between the first meeting in May 2015 during the Obama administration and construction, as commissioners and staff scrutinized details ranging from the thickness of the fence pickets, the spacing between them, and the look of anti-climbing features, weighing security against the public's ability to see the White House through the fence. "We didn't want the White House, a symbol of democracy, to look like a fortress," Bryant said. 2 years later, in February 2017, less than a month into Trump's first term, the Planning Commission publicly took up a National Park Service request to build a 200-square-foot tennis pavilion on the White House grounds. Behind-the-scenes work on the pavilion had been going on for about 1.5 years, according to the first Trump administration, which said the project was paid for with private donations. The National Park Service, which is part of the Interior Department, participated in a standard interagency review process of Trump's proposed ballroom, offering consultative preservation expertise and support. But the agency does not have final say over approving such projects, spokeswoman Jasmine Shanti said in a statement. She referred questions to the White House about the project's review process, construction plans, funding sources, and possible changes to the East Wing. As with similar efforts, final decisions rest with the executive office of the president, Shanti said. Presidents may well need a larger space to entertain world leaders and other guests, but building one must go through the proper process as required by law, said Thomas Gallus, who served on the National Capital Planning Commission from 2016 to 2021. The public's contribution and input is vital to what the commission is set out to do, so finding ways to encourage that, even when those visions may be different from what the commission ultimately may decide, it's important to hear that point of view and listen and learn those perspectives, Gallus said, according to the transcript of an interview posted to the commission's website. Trump echoed that sentiment in his first term when he created the Council on Improving Federal Civic Architecture. Trump said he wanted to give ordinary people influence over the design of government buildings, instead of making them subject to the choices of faraway government officials. The resulting federal architecture sometimes impresses the architectural elite, but not the American people who the buildings are meant to serve, Trump wrote in his executive order, adding, "They should also be visibly identifiable as civic buildings and should be selected with input from the local community." President Joe Biden signed an executive order disbanding the council just over a month after taking office in 2021. This week, tourist Jeff Stebe stood outside the White House on Pennsylvania Avenue wearing a "We the People" t-shirt. Stebe, 64, said he has no problem with the ballroom project. Trump knows the building and what he and his successors need to lead the country effectively. If that's more space for hosting guests, so be it. He's doing it for future administrations, not for himself, said Stebe, a Republican who volunteers to elect conservatives back home in the Chicago area. But Stebe also said Trump should submit any project with such an enduring legacy for public consideration and approval. It is the public's house, Stevie said. Even if he's paying for it, it's not his. Emily Davies contributed to this report.